In 50 years, when we tell our kids and grandkids about 2020, what's the first thing we tell them? Now this is a story all about how our lives got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a moment, just pour me some Henny and I'll tell you what happened in the year 2020. In January, most of Australia was raised Soleimani and Kobe. Well, they've seen better days. World leaders out clashing, saber rattling, grandstanding, people anticipating parachuting and nuking, when a little coronavirus, straight outta exotic food, started making people feel not so good. Then virus spread further, sweat dripped down many a dome, so everybody non-essential had to say home sweet home. So people were cooped up, day after day, with panic and hysteria rising along the way. Everybody panic buying to fill their pantries and cabinets. Gougers and scammers said, time to line our pockets, while politicians went, it ain't that bad, get back to work and off your ass. Can you how they themselves were responding? Blaming others and insider trading. It was a horrid year I wish could forget, but it could get than that, you bet. We've just started. I've still stories aplenty about what happened in the year 2020. It was the year of fire, the year of destruction, the year we took back what was ours. It was the year of rebirth, the year of great sadness, the year of pain, and a year of joy. It was a new age. It was the end of history. It was the year everything changed. 2020 was a year that should be statistically impossible, yet it happened. I'm surprised we didn't get multiple 100-year floods everywhere this spring, but I suppose there's still time. Yeah, no, we're not gonna talk about this. We'll be like that grandpa or granduncle we all had who wouldn't talk about what happened during the war. The one who'd always be quiet, looked frail, but had this vibe that he'd seen some shit and is not one to fuck with, and is definitely not one you'd want to bump up against in a dark alley. It all started when some idiot assembled almost 1 million people to storm a secret military base, saying, "They can't shoot us all." Oh boy, did we learn he was wrong. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epic of belief, it was the epic of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. I'd be like, sweet child of mine, have you ever been bored? Yes, well that ain't shit. I for over like 3-ish months stayed at home. Oh, and I know you might be thinking, oh yay, so that means school's over, right? Those damn teachers gave us twice the work of normal class, online also, using the most sketchy websites ever. Between the bushfires and the Rona and the riots and the SpaceX and what's gonna happen this month, where do we start? Don't forget Chernobyl burning for 2 weeks in April, too. Jesus, I keep forgetting that Australia burned down. There was almost a war with Iran. Somehow this is all a footnote in this fucked up year. Brexit happened too. I think fondly of the time when that was my biggest concern. The memes were good, but they came from a time that never existed. Legend says 2020 happened, but I can say for sure that the year after 2019 was 2021. But no one ever found out where those memes came from, because although they were great, 2020 never happened. Imagine, if you will, a race car catching fire before the person says, "Start your engines." Yeah, it was a shitty time to say the least. And the flaming race car drives into the crowd next? And then just starts doing donuts, creating a vortex that sucks in all the spectators into a fiery tornado. And then sprouts enormous jaws with glowing uranium teeth and bellows, nom eat all up. About the meteor shower in November. Good choice. Give some context to discuss the alien invasion in December. In the movies, when you see a global crisis, it burns hot and fast. Everyone barricades their doors, they get creative with what supplies they have or go out and risk death to get food for their family, and after an hour and a half the heroes save the day and it's over. It's an intense memory, maybe the heroes have PTSD in the sequel, but it's over. In reality, it burns low and slow. You go weeks without seeing your friends. You can get supplies, but the supply chains become unreliable. Occasionally you hear about someone you know getting sick, but then they get better. But you still don't want to get this virus, they tell you it's hell, and medicine can't do anything to stop it. Nothing helps, if you get it you're on your own. So you keep hiding. And it's the waiting that gets to you. When will my life go back to normal? You're afraid of getting the virus, you're afraid of not getting the virus, you're just afraid. And that's the real danger of a global crisis. It's not a battle, it's a siege, boring and painful. And that covers March through June. And I hope the rest of the year. Please let that cover the rest of the year. After the fires, locusts, rats, and murder hornets. I really want 2020 to calm down a bit. Okay, so for some context let me tell you about this gorilla from 2016. So it all started back in 2016 with this gorilla named Harambe. An hour past sun, what does YouTube Rewind in 2018 have to do with a plague and mass hysteria? We'll get there when we get there. A lot of things went wrong, but hindsight is 2020. You know, sometimes I think, what the hell did we do as humans to deserve all of this? And then I see comments like this. This is supposed to be a grandparent's story, not a dad's one. I hate to bust your bubble, but all grandpas are dads. Hindsight is 2020, exploding head. Nothing that they will remember. If people didn't remember 1918, flu virus, California race riots, history, then they sure aren't going to remember 2020. Like, do you even what happened 10, 20 years ago, let alone 50 years? Don't waste your time. The first rule of 2020? You don't talk about 2020. Also the second rule. And the third. I thought the first rule of 2020 was don't touch your face. It's also bold of them to assume we're gonna survive 2020. We're only at the halfway mark. 28 more days to the halfway mark. Australia was burning, the smoke from this was seen on the other side of the world, Australia flooded, there were sharks in the streets. Some guy ate a bat, a deadly virus swept the world, millions died, the world got shut down, people lost their jobs, we weren't allowed to go outside except for the essentials. SpaceX sent astronauts to the ISS, being the first privately owned company to do so, after Elon Musk named his child X-A-she, after it was initially named X-A-12. The Prime Minister of New Zealand was interrupted mid-interview by an earthquake. The Olympics were cancelled. We had no organized sport to distract us from everything. Marble racing took off as a legitimate form of entertainment. America's presidential race was between two men with a history of sexual assault, and America was teetering on the edge of their second civil war. Wow, Grandpa, that sounds like a tough year. Yeah, now let me tell you about the second half of it. It was awful. I ran out of Oreos on the first day and then couldn't go to the store to buy more, so I had to wait an entire week. Absolute bullshit. Oh, yeah, the world was shut down and almost in complete flames. Almost forgot about that. Avoid it on your time travel vacation. IDK, Cyberpunk 2077 was pretty cool. That we owe 2019 an apology. Holy shit, new year. I was like, promising decade ahead, Trump will get voted out, we will put people on Mars, all that good shit. Now I just hope there's food on the shelf when I go to the store. Grandkids, hey grandma. Me, yes, dears. Grandkids, tell us a story. A story of the year 2020. Me, well, you see, you know the thing called coronavirus, that has a cure now? Grandkids, yeah, what about it? Me, that's when it had no cure, it was the most deadly thing we saw at that time. Thousands died. It was a terrifying time. People scared of the lab results that would come back, hoping, praying, that they didn't have the coronavirus. Also, it was probably the worst year in history. Kids go in beetle position, scared out of their wits. Mother, what happened? Why do they look traumatized? Me, dunno, must have had a bad dream. The whole year was fucked up. Even the first half. Instead of my dreams coming true, my nightmares came true instead. January, WW3 almost breaks out, Kobe and Gigi die, and the Australian bushfires. February, Mr. Peanut dies, but it was still arguably the chillest month of 2020. March, pandemic, all sports cancelled, toilet paper shortage, and our livelihoods get taken away. April, UFO sightings, peak of lockdown and corona deaths. May, the scariest one yet, murder hornets, Florian loses his battle with cancer, Brian May has a heart attack, parallel universe, George Floyd protests, riots, racism, and SpaceX. June, Ebola. I'll say in an old deep scratchy accent, it was terrible. Corona came out and got most of us, then when it couldn't get any worse. We ran out of toilet paper. My ass felt so terrible having to use my finger, after that. Murder hornets came, like WTF Asia, hold your own shit. But then, these cicadas came out after 7 years of hibernating, and that's how it went down my shitlings. Son, have I ever told you why I appreciate the outdoors so much, and why you should too? Dad, you've told me this 1,000. Well, I'll tell you. Back in the year 2020, there was a global pandemic, everyone had to stay inside, I'd be inside for up to a week at a time. Doc, can we go inside for foo this lockdown? It went on for a few months, people couldn't see each other the same way we are now. Dad, can I at least go put my robot arm on charge? I got it off Wish, it's a hunk of fresh air for some people was unheard of for a time. Can we talk about anything else? All right. Christ child, you have no patience. So before we had implantable air filters, we wore these white face masks, to keep the virus away, but only when we went out. Son's eyes roll back and he spasms. Finally, my Psy Uber is here, bye Dad. Wife, shouts gender-neutral pet name dinner's ready. All right, I am on my way. Pulls pulley cord from hip, drives inside with tracks for legs. Flashback. So there was this time in 2020 where the humans got so panicked about a virus in China spreading that they stole all the TP. I saw opportunity and created the toilet paperinator that would ration the amount of TP used. Of course there were a few minor issues with it and ended up throwing a TP party instead. I don't care that you have a runny nose and that you don't think you should go to school because of it. Back in my day we went to school during a pandemic. There were so many distractions that almost no one noticed the death of privacy and the beginning of the absolute and final end of Western freedom as it had been known for a little over 200 short years. There was such a bitter-sweet taste left in the mouth of many of those who had been privileged enough to have lived the experience. It took that bitter taste of boot heel in the face and blood to realize suddenly what had been lost. It all seems so clear now. The weight of it all. So clearly defined looking back on it now with the smoke cleared and confusion fading into a new reality. So much lost. You heard it on herddit.radio. Thank you for listening and we hope to see you next time.